Emily, what are you excited about getting older?
I'm really excited about being 80 and saying whatever I want to say and people thinking, oh, she's just lost her mind or something. But like I haven't. Secretly, I haven't. I'm just saying what the fuck I want to say. What about you?
I'm excited to stop caring so much what people think. And similarly, I think to start being more honest. But the crazy thing, I thought I was like washed when I was 25. And I'm like, wait, I actually feel cooler and my life is way better each year.
Me too.
I feel younger each year. It's crazy. I'm like, I feel like a child.
But like, I feel better, I thought, at 16 when I hadn't worked with Leonardo DiCaprio yet.
Oh, yeah.
I had completely failed. I thought my career would be over at like
Absolutely.
20.
Same. Yeah.
And it really has just gotten better.
Yes.
Which I am surprised that I don't long for my youth. The only thing I long for is like to not, I don't know, put on a seatbelt and feel like I dislocated my shoulder. Like that's a real thing that's happening now. I feel my body being old.
Anyway, you're listening to the Whisper Network, and I'm Katie Bullen.
And I'm Emily Hampshire.
On this show, we speak out loud about the things that women usually whisper about.
And today we are talking about the thing that we as women are told directly and indirectly that we should fear the most.
Aging. So there's so much messaging in our culture that getting old is the worst thing that can happen to a woman. So we want to flip that around and talk about all of the amazing and very empowering aspects of aging and all the things we have to look forward to.
Yeah, and it's not even like a fake flip of the script because we put out this call on Instagram to see what you were looking forward to about aging. And seriously, we were overwhelmed with the incredible responses. One was, I'm excited. This is...
I love this.
I do love this one. I did, because this was a bit of an anomaly. I don't think there was many of these, but I love it. I'm excited to learn what old people's sex is like. I think that's amazing.
I think that's amazing. I love that. And what I've heard is it only gets better. Two other ones that I really loved was acting wild and stealing. And I'm like... I'm like, absolute
that one.
Same. Absolute
That's
same.
So good.
And more naps. I already take a fair amount of naps.
I take so many naps. This is another one. Letting go of the things I thought mattered in this life, understanding what truly does.
And we got so many like this. Give less fucks about what people think about my life and my choices.
That was so many people. This is one. The older I get, the less fucks I give about superficial things I used to be concerned about, like going out with no makeup on or making sure my armpits are shaved. I'm hoping this is exponential, and in another 10 years, I won't care at all.
And so aside from caring less about how others perceive us, we got some very, very funny ones as well. This comment especially made me laugh. Haha, I've got a whole bunch of old...
That already makes me laugh.
I love that it starts with a haha. I've got a whole bunch of old things now, and I love each of them. Glasses, I look cooler. CPAP machine, I have whole new levels of energy and sleep without heartburn.
What's a CPAP machine?
I think it's something for sleep apnea.
Oh, okay, yeah.
This one I thought was really fun, and I relate to. I cannot wait to not bleed. I've always gotten way more confident as I've gotten older, and like if that keeps happening, girl.
I love that
it's real.
You really, really committed to that, girl.
Gotta commit to the bit.
Yeah.
All these messages that we got, and we got so many, were super inspiring and hopeful, and we cannot wait to get into this episode.
Because we could not think of a better person to talk to about coming into your own as you get older than one of our role models, Jenna Lyons.
Jenna Lyons is an American fashion designer and businesswoman who was the president of J.Crew and became known as the woman who dressed America. She was named as one of the most powerful women in the world by Forbes, and she's been on the Time 100 list. She is a world fashion icon, current star of The Real Housewives of New York, and is the creative executive director at Fundamental Co. value creation company.
She is truly an inspiration to me on so many levels, so much so that I am constantly telling her she needs to write a book because I want a step-by-step how-to guide on how to be like a great boss, leader, businesswoman. I first saw her on this show called Stylish with Jenna Lyons, and I was telling a friend of mine about how obsessed I was with this woman, and he's like, oh, I know her. And 2 minutes later, he ambush connects us on this text. And even though I never want anyone to ever do that to me again, I am endlessly grateful that he did. So,
Same.
Jenna, thank you for being
Trevor.
here.
Thank you for having
Thank you, Trevor.
me.
Yes. Okay, so you worked in fashion for a really long time. How did working in fashion shape your ideas about what it means to age as a woman?
Oh, God. I think that's a really hard question to answer. I think I was really fortunate. I knew what I wanted to do so young. So like I kind of hit the ground running, and, my first job out of college was J.Crew. And luckily I was just always in the right place at the right time. And when it was time for someone to get promoted, like I was ready. And so I had this kind of unusual trajectory. And I think had the company been bigger when I started, that would not have happened. I didn't so much feel the youth pressure. I think what I felt more was the male versus female pressure. Mm-hmm. That is very real. I was very, well taken care of and had a wonderful career. But there were times when I felt that if I had been a man, it would have been different.
So you seem like a person who had a really strong identity at a young age because you were obviously successful. You were married. Did you feel like yourself when you were younger, or did you feel like you were trying identity on as a costume?
I mean, I think that's like the biggest false narrative I could possibly describe. It's like I wasn't secure at all. I was so insecure, which I think so many people are. For a million reasons. It'll take me too long to name them. But, I think even, getting married, like I did everything I was supposed to do. I did everything that everyone else around me did. I was literally just doing what I thought society was reflecting back to me that I should do. And I didn't realize how lost I was until I remember really distinctly. It was my 40th birthday party, and I had this huge job. I had a beautiful son. I had a husband who, it was a good relationship. I had this brownstone that I just renovated. Like I felt like so happy with everything I'd accomplished, and yet something was so wrong. And I didn't know what it was. And I remember standing on my balcony on my 40th birthday party and looking out at all these wonderful people who had come to celebrate me and thinking like, I don't want to feel this way for the next 40 years of my life.
Wow.
There were just so many things that I let myself do that had nothing to do with what I really wanted, but more like what I thought I should be doing.
Yeah, all the shoulds. Yeah.
That's so profound. And just that image of you at your 40th birthday party where you're like the height of everything, for you to feel that way. I think a lot of people feel that way. I know I do all the time. I'm curious, at what age did you feel like you finally met yourself? What age did you really meet Jenna Lyons?
I mean, this is going to sound really sad, but I would say probably like 48.
No, that's inspiring.
So inspiring, Jenna.
Okay.
Because also, even you saying, at your 40th birthday that you saw all these things and didn't feel like that was the life that you wanted, even though you seemingly had everything. I would not want to be younger me in any kind of version of myself.
Same.
But we're told that we're expired by the time we're like 34. And I just see you getting better. Like being gay.
Well, I think being gay is better too, certainly in the sex department. There's something that happens when you kind of have to put on a facade. Like you have to be like, I got myself here, so I now need to own the space I'm in. And it wasn't until everything fell apart that I found it much easier to be honest. And, I think a real awakening was leaving my job after 27 years. And I didn't get any phone calls at all. No one called me. No one wanted, nothing in the fashion industry. And I thought, how is this possible? And, most people would say to me, oh, I just thought you were locked up. That's very common in the industry where people give you a contract and you are taken out of the market for a while. But I think it was also I'd become so synonymous with this brand that a lot of other brands were like, well, we don't want her because we don't want her to just do J.Crew. And so I had to kind of rethink everything. And it was the best thing ever happened to me. It was the first time I let myself not just sort of fall through it. I'd always been so driven and been like, I have to do this, I have to do this, I have to do the next step. And all of a sudden I was like, I actually don't have to. I'm financially in a place where I can sit this out for a little bit. And it was an absolute gift.
I do love when things fall apart. I do feel like always the best shit comes after that. And I have to always remember that. It's hard to know in the moment. As you get older, you start to know that that's how those dots connect.
I can't emphasize this enough, but the thing that always stuck with me is that every single person that I have come back around and across, I've had like a wonderful experience with. I have a network that's bigger than I ever realized. Like I thought everything had closed in on itself, but if anything, it's actually much bigger because I really am so grateful for all of the relationships. That saying of like, don't burn bridges, it's true. The world comes back around. You make connections and sometimes it's like picking up the phone call and saying like, hey, do you know someone? I was always so afraid to ask. And now I'm not afraid to ask for anything.
That is something I love this about you. And I've asked you to teach me this and how to ask and ask for what you want. That's why you need to write a book. But there's just ways to do it. And as you get older, you really feel like you can speak up. We actually put this thing out asking people what they're looking forward to when they get older. And almost like 90% of people said that they can just stop caring about what other people think and do what they want to do and stop giving any fucks.
But it's funny. I mean, I've said this to friends too. It's like I remember for years I dressed for men. You know, everyone wants to look thin and sexy. Like that was the goal. And I took on what was reflected back to me of what thin and sexy was to look like the women that I had seen. And it wasn't until I stopped doing that and I started dressing for just myself and what I liked that I got far more attention from men than I ever did when I was dressing for what I thought that they wanted. And confidence is something that you can feel a mile away. Like I wasn't sending off the message that I needed anything from them. It was just, I was actually like just me. And it completely changed my entire relationship with men on a professional level and on a personal level.
That's so interesting to me. And Emily speaks about you all the time as like you are in the prime of your life, like the hottest you've ever been. And you said something really interesting to her in a text message about a pivot.
Educate us on what the pivot is.
For me, it's had multiple facets. I think there's two parts. And I've experienced like feedback from people from the outside world coming to me and saying like, I'm so happy to see someone be able to pivot. And so it's been twofold. One is sexually, like the number of women who have written to me from the show and said, it's so nice to see a woman who has a second chance and actually finds themselves. And there have been many women who have always known that there was something off, but were afraid. And, you know, looking at someone, it's like, oh, you can still be you and have a different relationship with your sexuality. So that was a huge pivot. And for it to be, you know, successful, I'm in a happy and loving place. Like that feels really incredible, especially considering that I'm 56. Like I'm not a young kid anymore. And I think a lot of people, women particularly, are like, I'm divorced and have children. It's like, what am I going to do now? It's not game over at all.
That narrative is actually like not true.
Opposite.
I see the evidence in that in so many people.
Opposite.
And yeah.
This is so hopeful for me.
No, I've had more love and experience and revelations from a sexuality point in my later half of my life than I did in my entire first 45 years. I mean, just so different. So that's one part. And then professionally, I think, you know, I studied fashion design. I wanted to be a designer from the time I was in 7th grade. Like that was all I knew. And what I didn't realize, and I'm grateful for, is that because of my role at J. Crew, so we had 3 different brands. We had J. Crew, Madewell, and Factory. And there were so many different parts of all of them, but I was also in charge of making sure that all of them felt different. And so what I realized is that ability to have multiple things going on, but try to help shape them in different ways is actually really valuable when you get into the outside world if you want to do something new, because it makes you kind of nimble in your brain to be able to kind of move around and not necessarily be so into one thing. And so I had that experience, which was incredible. And then no one called. And so I started to just like take whatever random phone calls came my way, and they were all over the place. And I think before I would have been like, no, I'm a designer. My background is clothing. That's my expertise. I should lean into my expertise. And like, I would say for the first 4.5, 5 years after leaving my job, every single meeting I was in, I went from being the decision maker and the person who probably knew the most in the room to having no fucking clue what anyone was talking about half the time. And it was amazing because all of a sudden I'm not in charge. And there was a relief to that. And to be able to say, this is what I think, this is what I love, this is my instinct, but I am new here. So like I'm open to conversation. And it was fun.
That's so interesting that you say no one called, because I remember, like Schitt's Creek, when we did that, it was over before, like, we had ended the show. No one was watching, and then got all the awards after it was done. And so me and Annie, who played Alexis on the show, when we'd finished the show, we were like, oh, the offers are going to come rolling in. And like crickets, nothing.
Wow.
And I actually started getting on the other side of things, like writing and pitching stuff, because nobody was offering me anything. And then Schitt's Creek blew up, which was great. But having that new thing come, because that path that I'd always gone on wasn't just calling me.
Yeah. And I think it's scary. It's scary for most people.
Yeah, what was the scariest part of the pivot for you?
I mean, there's a couple of things. One is like I went from being, invited to everything. I just had a big life and feeling very much like on top of my game and feeling like I was respected in my industry, to literally being invited to nothing. I felt irrelevant. I felt like nobody cared what I had to say. And so there's the personal, just kind of, am I valuable to anyone outside of this job that I had? And, I had to peel away my talent and my self-worth separate from my job. And it took me almost a year to do that. It was so scary and painful. Like I was so depressed. And I initiated the departure. I felt like it was time. It's a little bit like when you first have a baby and you just have no idea how much it's going to change your life. This was like letting the baby go. And I was like, oh, now what? And that's why I tried so many different things. I mean, I've literally tried so many things. And some have been really successful and some haven't. And I think I would have been ashamed of that before. And I'm not. I'm so proud. Being in the entrepreneurial world, everyone just talks about, I tried this, this didn't work. And I'm like, oh, it's okay for you to fail? I didn't know that. I didn't know that you could still have a life after a failure. I had no clue.
You're listening to The Whisper Network. We'll be back after the break. People have this idea about you because you're so like stunning and dressed well and all these things. But when you were a kid, you had that condition that made you not cool, Jenna. And that
100%.
kind of turned out to be the best thing, I think, because you created your lash line. And anyways, I'll let you speak to that.
I mean, well, I have a condition called incontinentia pigmenti, and it basically it affects the skin, the teeth, and the hair. And my teeth have been redone. I just finished 7 years, 16 surgeries.
Oh, wow.
But yeah, when I was young, I mean, my teeth were cornicular, like they looked like little cones. So I was teased mercilessly. But I remember so vividly, sitting in my office when I was at J. Crew and having my huge corner office, which I was so grateful and proud of, and looking at the models. And I was the one who was picking the models and the photographers and editing the film and deciding what they were going to look like. How ironic that was, that the person who I was when I was a little kid, who like felt so unattractive and so on the outside of fashion and pretty and all that, was sitting in a seat where I got to maneuver around that world and make calls around what was pretty and who was the right face. And it was just the biggest irony of my life.
Which I think is so amazing now, though, that more people, I think, know, from RHONY and just you having put yourself out there, that they would have had the idea that you were just this perfect kind of model picking models. And it has made you not only so much more interesting, but it's kind of with the theme of like, from seemingly bad things come the greatest shit. Like, you didn't have eyelashes, you made an eyelash line that like...
Which I had to close, which I don't think I've told you.
How does that feel?
I'm totally happy to talk about it, because I think, like I was saying before, like having now been part of this entrepreneurial world, and when I say that, I just mean like people who are constantly starting businesses. And when you start to raise money, you meet all these people who have been in this world, and they all say it, like out of 10 deals that they invest in, 1 or 2 really pop. And there's so many factors that go into it. And our situation was, we had a wonderful start and everything was fantastic. And we had a challenge where I had been insistent on making the packaging biodegradable because I didn't want to make it in plastic. And that was really important to me. And our factory had never made biodegradable packaging before. So we had this huge order from Target. It was wonderful. They were an amazing partner. And we had the remainder of the inventory sitting in our factory, and they were in a very tropical climate, and the product grew mold.
Wow.
And They couldn't ship it. They were afraid to tell us because they didn't know what to do. They were going to try and see if they could fix it. And what happened was we ended up stalling our delivery to Target for so long that they ended up being like, we can't work like this. We're going to actually cut you. And I got it. I understood why Target did what they did. And it wasn't the factory's fault. They just had never done it. And I had pushed for something. It was just one of those things. And I learned an incredibly valuable lesson during it. But when we lost that Target project, I realized that there probably wasn't going to be another, I would have had to have so many additional smaller accounts to make up that volume that there was no way I could manage it. And I was like, okay, this is a sign. I tried to fix it for so long and I was like, I'm going to just actually make a decision. And I'm okay. I'm not ashamed of it. I really am proud of the product. People still love the product and I'm so proud of what we made and it's okay.
I think this is actually the greatest thing that could have happened from me not knowing that, right? And also the reason why you even did RHONY was because of that and how that's changed everything.
I know.
Right?
It's so strange. I mean, that was the impetus for me to doing it because, Target was like, listen, can you do an ad campaign? Because you're doing really well in the places that people know you, like New York and Boston and Chicago, all the places you would expect. But we're having a hard time in some of the middle states where people don't totally know your name. And I was like, I can't afford to do a national ad campaign. We were tiny. And then RHONY called and I was like, well. And that was the time that the show launched, was exactly the time that the inventory didn't arrive.
Wow.
It was just a total calamity. And so it took me a year to try and see if I could salvage it, but it just never happened. So
a reason why I feel like you're so relatable on the show and why you're everybody's favorite is because...
I am not, but thank you.
You are. Well, certainly amongst my group of friends.
Thank you.
And I think it's because you're so honest about failures that have happened in your life, but also changes and meeting yourself now. And I want to know, what has been the most surprising part of becoming the person that you are today versus who you were with such a set identity when you were younger?
I mean, I think I know this is going to sound so trite and I'm afraid to say it, but I feel like I have more authentic friendships and more authentic relationships. And I don't abandon myself the way I used to. I would abandon myself all the time.
Yeah.
Whether it be for a man, whether it be for somebody who was more powerful in any situation than I was, whether it be somebody I needed something from, I would put my own needs or desires or things that were important to me aside. And I cannot believe how bad that is for you. It erodes you inside. And I don't do that anymore. And I'm so grateful. I happen to be dating someone who is also very connected to what is important to her. And she's like, check in with yourself. Are you really saying what you mean? Is that, and I have to be like, I'm going to check in. And I never checked in myself. Never. I was just rolling along. And I feel just more honest and I feel more trust in my relationships, all of them, honestly.
That, I'm going to cry. That is so not abandoning yourself is something, that's why I think I've been didn't want to get in relationships or anything because I would I'd do everything for the other person. And then I kind of went the other way. But that
and then
is
you'd resent them.
You resent them.
And then I'd resent them. Yeah.
Or why aren't you taking care of me?
Yeah. Also, why would you like me when I'm not even being myself and because I'm doing what you want?
Right. So this isn't really authentic and you don't know me and you don't really know
all.
Me. Oh, yeah.
Exactly.
Yes. Oh, no.
But then it's that thing of what we put out there when everybody was saying what they can't wait to do when they're older is do things for themselves. And I was thinking why can't we do that now? Why does it have to be when we're older then?
Well, I think it's a different conversation between men and women because I think men are conditioned from a very young age. And I even see it with the difference between my son and my girlfriend's son and daughter. And it's there is something socially around women about conforming and molding themselves in to fit in order to get what they want. And I think, we are seeing how that repeats itself in our country now. And I think that there is a very old idea that women are meant to be the backup dancer. And I can even remember hearing myself say, just be quiet and put your head down and work hard and do a good job. I can hear that voice in my head when I was really young. And I would never walk into a room with that attitude now. Never. But it took me a long time to get there. And I think we condition girls very much so to be a little bit more in the background. And we get angry at them when they step forward and have too much to say or are too opinionated.
Yeah.
And, that is a much bigger hurdle. So I think to your point, like, why does it happen when you're older? I think as you get older, you start to recognize it. I mean, again, I also think being gay helps too, because I don't need that. I'm not looking for a man's validation in any way, shape, or form, not professionally and not personally. I just don't need it anymore. And that is a huge game changer.
I talk about that a lot on this show, what changed for me, just even body image and stuff, how I realized I used to think that I had to be super thin. And then when I realized what I like, that's not attractive to me. And somebody being just not trying hard for a guy is attractive to me. And even the way I dress too. I used to wear a short skirt and heels, Jenna, which I know is fine for sometimes, but like that's so not where I live.
Talk about the red carpet. Like I completely rethought how I show up on imagery and red carpet on press events, and and how to balance that with like, I still wear lipstick and want my hair done and all that, but I have shifted my approach to clothing and also what I show, what I don't show. That it's all.
You can tell it's for you. You can tell, and Cass, but it's like for you. And there is this thing that I think women talk about a lot when you get older. I've started to feel this, that you start to feel invisible. And I realized I did this show, and it was the first time where the lead guy on the show, he like respected me, and he didn't like want to sleep with me or anything. And I was like, oh my God, I've aged out of that person who is going to be like objectified.
Yeah.
Do you feel invisible in that way, Jenna, though, or do you feel more visible than ever?
I remember distinctly when I was younger, like going out to dinner or walking down the street and like getting looks from men. And like, I needed that. And I will never forget, it was probably about 3 months after I'd had my son, and I was in Brooklyn, and I had him in like a baby Bjorn. And all of a sudden, all the gay boys were looking at me, but none of the straight men. And the gay boys were like going like, oh, hot mama. And like, I think my shirt was unbuttoned and my boobs were huge because I was breastfeeding, and I was just like kind of disheveled. But I probably was like hot in that sort of fever pitch way that you are when you first have a child. But the men didn't look and they kind of didn't look at me the same after that. They look at me with respect, but I feel invisible in certain moments and others I don't. The moment I start to feel invisible, I wear really high heels. That always helps.
Yeah. Something that I wanted to ask you about, and you've talked about your partner, Cass Bird, who is like an incredible photographer and like crazy, creative visionary like yourself. I wanted to ask you this kind of in a selfish way, but you were married at the right age and you did everything right, but you actually met, I think, the love of your life later. And what has that experience been like to meet your soulmate or the love of your life now?
It's funny, particularly having children, like it almost is like I feel like my life started over. And what I mean by that is like now I have this whole other chapter. And, it's like the idea of investing and talking and starting again with other people at this stage of my life is like, I start to recognize the things that feel truly important. I measure success so differently than I did before in both relationships and in my professional life. Success is like making plans, and success is, talking about like what kind of rocking chair we're going to have on the porch. Like those are the things that feel like someone's holding you and you're holding them. And that kind of tenderness feels really like I'm grateful for it. And I like every song on the planet is about love. And we've talked about this all the time where it's like we have cars and houses and a lot of pets. And we're like, at what point do we start just getting smaller, making our lives smaller? And I actually am looking forward to that. I feel grateful, like just really grateful, because hasn't been easy. Getting divorced was painful. I was in another relationship that ended very challenging. Like it was so hard. And it's like, I'd better to have loved than never have loved at all.
What has shocked you the most about yourself as you've gotten to know yourself at this stage of life, like after your pivot?
God, I think probably I have managed and created a facade of like, I have it all together and I can do anything and I've got this. And I think just acknowledging that like it's manufactured. No one has it together all the time. And if they do, they're probably faking it till they make it. And I just have been like far more gentle with myself about that stuff. But I don't know. What would you say is the big thing that surprises you the most about yourself now?
Me, it would be that my life and career and stuff is so much better now than it was in my 20s. And I never thought I could have a career past 30. I think I'm just at the end of this era where I think, people growing up now, it's not like a woman has this expiry date as much, but I did not think that things would be as great as they are now. I also feel like I look better now than I did when I was younger because I was doing all these like ridiculous things to try and make myself thinner, sexier, all these things. And now I look back at pictures and I'm like, ugh, trying way too hard.
Trying too hard.
Yeah, so that thing, like letting go of these ideas, and that really surprises me because I've always been very, ambitious and like need to be productive. Yeah. Katie, you?
I think I'm going to be like Jenna, and I don't think I've met myself yet. Yeah.
Well, the world is open to there's so much opportunity for you. That's just great. I had my son when I was 38. So that was, now he's just turned 18. I've had a whole other life. Like, I know you feel like being close to 40 feels like you're kind of close to like, okay, I've got to figure things out. I have had a completely separate, like, start over situation on every level. And so you're just kind of in chapter 1. So you have a whole nother chapter.
It's so exciting to talk to you because it's like this is not the messaging that women normally get. So, Jenna, we've taken up a lot of your time today, but sort of the final thing that I wanted to ask is like, what advice would you give to the you who hadn't really met herself yet? And then what advice would you give to women who are in the middle of their pivot and they're scared?
No pressure.
No pressure. Zero pressure. Whatever comes to mind.
I think advice is so hard because it's much easier said than done, as it always is. But I really wish that I had like listened to myself more when I was little, like truly listened, like checked in with myself and been like, does this feel right? I wish I had just taken a minute to like breathe and talk to myself. That is one of my probably, like, if, everyone's like, oh, I don't regret anything. I'm like, there's a few things I regret, like sleeping with that guy in Cancun and, not listening to myself. And then I guess anyone who's in the pivot, I think your openness and willingness has everything to do with your success. Like if you are emotionally and like philosophically shut down or like have preconceived ideas it makes it much harder. I think like being open to sort of being like a tree and sort of flowing with it and like not being so like I got to take care of everything and control everything because it's hard to control and it doesn't happen at the pace you want. Some things will go really quickly, some things will go really slowly, and some days you'll feel great and other days you'll feel like you made a mistake, and that's okay. And like if you can just be a little bit more loose and flexible around that, it's helpful.
Well, I think just knowing that there is such a thing as the pivot, that it's actually things are changing. And anytime things change, it feels bad because you're growing, right?
Yeah.
To know there's a pivot and that's what it is.
And that it can get so much better.
Yeah.
It can.
Jenna, thank you so much for today. I'm so inspired.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you so much. You're listening to The Whisper Network. We'll be back after the break.
I found that to be, as usual, a very moving conversation. I definitely cried a few times.
Oh, really? I didn't notice you cried.
Yeah.
But, no, you know what so surprised me is that, like, I know Jenna really well, and I got so much out of that. Like, I didn't think there was that much more to learn because I'm already so inspired by her on so many levels.
And very good friends.
Yeah. But everything she said, like, I clearly didn't know that her company, Love Scene, was no longer. And I love that she told that story because I think that's so important to know. Like, I now am learning so much with, when we pitch things and work on something for so long and then the show doesn't go or whatever.
Yes.
And there's nothing I love more than hearing those kinds of stories. And I tell people the story of Schitt's Creek when we went, I wasn't doing this, but they pitched it to everyone in the U.S.
Yes.
And nobody wanted it.
I remember when Dan was doing that.
Yeah. And nobody wanted, and then it wouldn't have even gotten a second season had it not been done in Canada. And so, like, I do think the universe comes around for you in that way, and the hard things give way to the better thing.
Yeah, I think what moved me the most is I meant what I said to her when I was like, I think that I'll have a similar journey. Like, I am going to meet myself truly a little bit later in life. And the fact that she was so driven and so defined by her success and did everything by the right age and was a total overachiever. Mm-hmm. And then it sort of fell apart in a way that she didn't see happening, but that actually was the much better version of her life and the more authentic one. And she now is like, oh, failure happens all the time. Failure is one of the best things that can happen to you. That really moved me because I was definitely what she said about when you're an entrepreneur, you assume things are going to fail and you assume that you're going to pivot. Why do I not look at my life that way?
Right?
If I'm like, fuck, like that relationship didn't work or this career thing isn't going how I want, I'm like, my life sucks. But it's like, no, that's how most things go.
Yeah. And that's how you grow and learn and do things differently unless you're crazy, because the definition, right, of crazy is you do the same thing over and over again with expecting different results. Expecting different results. Yep. But you know what I have to say, knowing you, I think it's true that when you turn 40, especially because you were saying the other day, I was kind of like asking a little deeper of, do you really want this thing of being married, having a kid and stuff? Or is this what you've been told, like, or think you should do? Because you've done everything else, like written a book, directed a movie, like insane. And I think, I'm not saying those things aren't what you want. I can totally see you on that balcony. 40
at
and just like having
party.
Everything. You have your book deal, your movie deal, your podcast, everything. And you're like, this isn't what I want, guys. But she also, that thing she said about not abandoning herself was
Emily,
so huge to me. And that's so interesting because so many of the messages that we got back, you know, when we put out that Instagram ask of like, what are you looking forward to when you get older? I would say 90% were all about not caring what other people think and like doing what you really want. And that's like what I always think. Why do we have to wait till we're like 80 to just do what you want and say what you mean and not give any fucks? And the truth is, nothing's stopping us from doing that now. So when I think about how we fear and are being taught to fear aging, is that some governing force trying to keep us quiet because they know that once we don't give any fucks anymore, like they no longer have control over us? But this isn't just women. Like a lot of men answered this too, saying like, getting older, I want to just give no fucks anymore. Do what I want.
Yeah, I think that it's like a sort of a human condition to fear getting older because we're getting closer to dying.
Yeah.
How freeing to be like, oh, it gets better and I can embrace it. And I also, when she talked about abandoning herself, I was like, that's my number one goal as I get older is to just do that less because I think you end up there anyways.
Oh, that's so true.
So our conversation with Jenna, it made me think of another message that we got on Instagram that I want to share because I think it could be a good note to end on. And I know, Emily, you have one that you want to share too. So our listener wrote, 20s felt like exploring, 30s building without knowing how to and surviving the consequences. I relate to that. And 40s feels great. I know who I am and what I'm good at and what to avoid. Kind of like when you get into the zone during a run. I don't run, so I don't relate, but I get what you're saying.
Like.
The listener continues, I'm proud and I'm grateful for every precious version of me, every single one of them that got back on her feet eventually after getting knocked down. I know I'm resilient and there is a peace and a power that comes with it.
Oh my gosh. Who sent this? Are they a writer? I got goosebumps.
Yeah.
Well, okay, but I have one too that was my favorite. And it said, let me share that if women could bottle 50 and drink it at 20, we would rule the fucking world.
Mic drop.
And scene. And so that's our episode for today.
That is our episode for today.
Thank you again to Jenna Lyons, my dear friend who I didn't think I could get any more wisdom from, and I did. And I'm so grateful that she came on the show and that we had the opportunity to bring her into the Whisper Network.
And now, as always, we want to hear from you. What are you whispering about? What do you want to hear us whisper about next? Follow us on Instagram at the Whisper Network Podcast, or send us an email or leave us a voice note. You can do either of those things on our website, thewhispernetworkpodcast.com.
And if you like what you've been hearing, please share it with people in your Whisper network. And don't forget to rate and review us on your favorite podcasting app, but only if you like us. If you don't, just keep it to yourself, or just go against everything you feel because you're not thinking right and just put 5 stars. Would recommend.
Yeah, thank you so much.
I'm Emily Hampshire.
And I'm Katie Boland.
See you next time.
The Whisper Network is produced by...
Oh, it's...
Go ahead.
It says Emily. I mean, I don't really want to.
Say
but
I'm...
It says my name.
Oh, no, I'll do it. Unless you want to, Em.
No, you can do it.
Do you want to do it? I feel like we don't have many with you, but it's annoying.
Okay, I'll do it. I'll do it, and if I can't do it in one go, then you'll do it. Okay. Okay. The Whisper Network is produced by Antica Productions. Our senior producer is Allison Broverman. Samantha McLean is our development producer. Laura Riguer is our executive producer. And Sydney Fior is our production manager. This episode was sound designed by Philip Wilson, with theme music by Michael Boland and Nathaniel Smith. This podcast is hosted on Acast. I think you'll never want me to do it again.
That was the best one anyone's ever done. I was like, this is Shakespeare.
No, but somebody told me once, never be proficient at something you don't want to do.
I'm like, sorry, you've got the job, babe.